ICO is dead. I think we can all agree ICO is dead, crypto is dead. So what's next? The topic of today's discussion will be um, the state of the blockchain. So I would like to thank organizers for inviting me 2 years in a row now to talk about it. 30 seconds about me. I run an agency called It.Works. We build blockchain related projects only. We've been super lucky to work with some of the greatest brands in the space and outside of blockchain space, and that includes blockchain foundations, that include Ethereum foundation as well. So before we talk about blockchain, a quick reminder: who kind of owns any crypto? Who did like at least one transaction with crypto? Okay, so there's like a little, I think around 30%. So I think when talking about crypto, it's super important to remind ourselves that crypto is crypto. When I say crypto, I mean of course blockchain and cryptocurrencies, not the cryptography. It's super important to understand that in an innovation, and it's something that, it's something that is not there yet. It's getting there. And the best way to understand those things is Innovator's Dilemma book that introduces concept of disruptive technologies. So disruptive technologies are the kind of technologies that change the way, that transform the world, or at least the whole industries. And it sounds big, it sounds exaggerated, but you all know a bunch of technologies like this that you use and that you've seen coming to power in your lifetime. And a great example would be a smartphone. A great example would be a digital camera for those that are a little bit older. And for those that are even a little bit older, the internet is another example. And it happens that when the disruptive technology comes to the game, oftentimes empires will fall and empires will come to power, as it was with Kodak and Canon. Kodak lost its market and eventually went bankrupt when the digital camera came around, and Canon raised to power with the growth or digital camera market. And the same was with Nokia. That some of us remember Nokia and what happened to them. And Google and Apple was the companies to rise to power, but also Samsung, also LG, with the adoption of smartphones. And ironically, the digital camera was invented in Kodak's laboratories for the first time. And ironically, the first smartphone, some of you might still remember Nokia Communicator, was created by Nokia. So, and the reason is that those emerging technologies, when they start, and we're gonna focus on the chart now, they start at the point on the market that they make no sense at all. And I remember first digital camera, low resolution, you connect to your computer, and all those old CRT screens. If there are people who can remember that, the photos would still look crappy. And only with time, when the amount of megapixels and the quality of the optics would increase, they would cross the first line here that would indicate they're ready for the consumer market. Suddenly, digital camera was good enough. And suddenly, digital camera was good enough for all the new products that were showing, like MySpace, that was going to change the world and stay there, but didn't. And suddenly, when that happens, they start to gain the market, and when the competition understands what's going on, it's too late, because they already gained the market, they already have the brand, they already have a production, supply chain, and everything. So the competition is not able to catch up. And then, at the end of the life cycle of the technology, when you have this disruptive technology, is when it becomes so good that nobody cares anymore. Nobody cares anymore. How many megapixels does your camera have? 10, 12, 20? I don't care. And ironically, the digital camera became a sustainable technology, the one that nobody is buying digital cameras anymore for consumer market. We all have 2, 3, 4 in our mobile phones, right? In our laptop, everywhere. And so it's now just happening with the smartphones, that nobody care anymore how big is your screen on the smartphone, because it already takes 95% of the space. So when it's going to be 98, it's ain't going to be such a big difference. So, talking about disruptive technologies, we have a new disruptive technologies coming, and I would say one of the new, most exciting technologies that are coming is blockchain. So, boom, here we go. So, I mean, it's not easy to explain what a blockchain is, so we're gonna stick to this simple analogy. You can think about blockchain as a big spreadsheet, Google Drive spreadsheet, like shared among everyone. And there are some rules enforced on the spreadsheet. So everybody can add a line. Nobody can edit already existing lines in a spreadsheet, but anyone can add a line as long as they stick to some very specific rules. And the rules are, I cannot add a line that would imply, so let's say the table have a from, to, and amount, which means this guy, and this is just some magical address, sends this amount of money to this address, and this is the amount that he's sending, right? So the rules are, I cannot spend money that is not mine, and I know it because the transaction is signed, and I cannot spend money more than I have, and I cannot spend my money twice. Those are the basic rules of the Bitcoin. And other than that, it's just a spreadsheet that there's some cryptography under the hood, there's some networking, there's consensus algorithm, but we're gonna skip all that for today. We're gonna stick to the simple analogy. So that's Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin has been for around 14 years now. But here is a new kid on the block. It's been for a couple of years now. It's called Ethereum. Ethereum extends this Bitcoin model and says, we have all those transactions that we used to have. We can send some money from that guy to that guy. Okay, the keys looks a little bit differently, but kind of not very readable at all. But I can send this new kind of transactions to the network, the kind of that has a from, but doesn't have a to. We don't know we're sending to the network, not to any particular person. And additionally, we attach some computer code to the transaction. And the computer code is being put on the blockchain, and it's gonna stay there. If we don't tell otherwise, it's gonna stay there forever. And now I can send a new kind of transaction from any address to this particular code, because the code gets an address as well. And I can tell the code to execute, to do a little bit of the execution. So I can now create my own rules. I can tell what are the new rules that I would like to have. Okay. So, quick catch up. We have Ethereum, it has wallets, it has contracts, 2 animals now in the zoo, not one. And we can do money transactions, we can do code execution. For those of you who are a little bit more technical, the code execution is Turing complete, means we can do pretty much anything we want as long as we are willing to pay for it, because it's not very cheap, because we need to run it on every single computer. So for every instruction run on the Ethereum virtual machine, we have to pay with Ether. And it's deterministic. Wherever you run the code, it's gonna give exactly the same result. Doesn't matter what machine, what operating system, yada, yada, yada. And the code, it can store some information, it can do, transfer money, do whatever we want. Yeah, that sounds like a complicated spreadsheet. Why would I care about all that stuff? So, imagine a smart contract. If I may ask, what's your name? Piotr, I can see Piotr. So let's say I'm deploying a contract to the network. Piotr is putting a little bit of the money to the contract. I'm putting a little bit of the money to the contract, and then one of us is picked at random and all the money is transferred to one of us. What just happened? I built a lottery on blockchain. Now that fairly simple piece of code implies that there is no way of cheating. There is no regulation, there is no komisja gier losowych and all that stuff that doesn't exist, yet it's impossible to cheat as long as there's no bug in the code, and code is public on the blockchain, so I can verify if I don't believe in it, right? So I just built a lottery on the blockchain, and there's no rule that says only me and Piotr can do it. Like anyone in the room can join, right? And we can make all the randomness we want, and we can make all the rules that we want. So we can take it one step further, and we can bet with Piotr, and again, you are all welcome to join. And we can bet and say tomorrow is a Polish-Germany match, football match. And Piotr says, Poland gonna win. I says, Germany gonna win. And now depending on the result, and the other question is how do we get the result on blockchain that I'm gonna skip for now, is we can send the money to those who bet correctly, right? And again, as long as we can rely on the information who won, there's no way to cheat. There's no need for regulation. There's no even need for like a company behind it. There's no jurisdiction, there's no country. So, and we can go on, and let's say, how about we all chip in, and if one of us have a fire in the apartment, we're gonna use some of that money to renovate the apartment, and we build insurance on the blockchain. And if we go from industry to industry, from business to business, we will discover that everywhere you have those things that we call in blockchain trusted third parties. We trust the insurance company. We trust Lotto, random game company. We trust our supermarket, and we trust our regulatory bodies that they take care of quality of the foods. Like everywhere, we have those guys that we have to trust. And what the opportunity with blockchain is we can now redefine the notion of trust. We can start to build all those institutions now automatically on the blockchain as smart contracts. Doesn't mean it's super easy, but it's happening. So here's Ben Horowitz. Ben Horowitz is one of the most successful VC investors from Silicon Valley in the world. Here's in his own words.
Obviously, founded to invest in crypto.
Can we hear it? I don't think so.
Bets there. Is there enough real stuff out there to look at?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that there's probably more developer activity in crypto than in anything that we've seen since the internet. And I think the right way to think about it is it's a new computing platform. So once every decade or two, a new computing platform comes along. So we had the mainframes and PCs and smartphones. And the thing that's deceptive about it is when the new platform at the time is generally worse in most ways than the old platform, but has some new capabilities. So if you go back to the smartphone, like now, it's like, oh yeah, the smartphone. But then, the people who are used to the PC were like, wow, that is a really small computer. That's not too powerful with a teeny tiny screen. How am I going to put my big old spreadsheet on that little ass computer? That was true, but the smartphone also had a camera and a GPS built in, so now you didn't have to just build a spreadsheet, you could build Instagram, you could build Lyft, you could build new kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And with crypto, it's very similar in that it's worse in most ways than the old computing platform in that it's slow, it's really complex, it's lacking a lot of features. But it has one feature that has never existed before, and that's trust. Mm-hmm. And trust is super powerful. It comes from the mathematical and game theoretic properties of the platform, and that means that you don't have to trust the government or Twitter and Facebook or the other people even on the network. You just have to trust math. Mm-hmm. And that opens a very interesting world for developers because you can build new applications like money, which nobody's ever been able to program money before, but now you can. You can program law and contracts, and you don't have to worry about a corrupt lawyer. You don't have to trust a lawyer. You don't have to trust a judge. You can program digital property, so you can build art that only one person owns, and you don't have to trust a broker or somebody who might be faking it. You don't have to trust the platform. If you're a developer, a lot of people built things on the last set of platforms, Twitter and Facebook, and that didn't work out that well because when that company changed their mind about what they wanted to be, then all the developers lost. But in crypto world, you don't have to do that. You just trust the math, and that's a really transformational idea.
So let's talk about the bubble. So in 2017 and 18, in a new kind of fundraising platform called ICOs, the amount of money raised exceeded $10 billion, making it really competitor to a VC or other fundraising methods. Now, we have a market cap. We had a market cap of $800 billion last year, and it was last year, January or December 2017, and now it's only 14 billion. So most of those ICOs, they have like super negative ROI, so return of investment. So And you probably all here because you heard about, crypto during last bubble and, kind of, what's going on, it's all that and what's going to happen next. So, so the interesting thing about this bubble is very similar to the bubble we already know, which is a dot-com bubble that happened in the late 90s. So in the late 90s, there was a lot of people saying, the internet is a scam. And well, in the late 90s, actually, a lot of people were just renaming their companies to .com, and then the valuation would jump like 10 times because there was a .com in the name now. So a lot of people start calling it scam, and eventually, in the at the end of '99 and in the rise of 2000, that all collapsed. And in 2003, there is an article in one of the very well-known, respected newspapers says Amazon is a scam because it's losing money and it's nowhere near to be profitable. And we all remember the news just from a couple of weeks ago when Amazon was the company valued, the highest valued company in the world. I think even maybe today it is. I think there's like Microsoft, Amazon, Apple like fighting for the first place. So all those companies existed in the 90s and was called scam in early 2000s. And I mean, this is a tendentious peak. It's not like 99% of those companies in the late 90s, they will all went bankrupt and people would see no money whatsoever, the investors who invested in the company. So, the burst of the bubble was probably the most healthiest thing that happened to the internet because all those people who became millionaire by building nothing now have to work their asses off to get rich again. So, interesting thing about it is in the 90s, the internet was not ready to make a disruption. It was a disruptive technology at the very early stage. And I give you an example. So the Netflix is here. So Netflix entered Polish market, I think, 2 years ago, right? So Netflix started by sending DVDs. In 1997, it's a 20-year-old company. Probably older than some people who are attending those conferences. And for 10 years, they were just sending DVDs. They were basically a competitor to Blockbuster, to all those DVD rentals, not VHS anymore. And then they only launched streaming platform in 2007, and they would actually have so many DVDs that they would only stream from the DVDs that they have, because it would be illegal for them to use one DVD to stream to 2 different users at the same time. So the legal was so not ready for streaming. But it took another 10 years for the worldwide adoption. So, and I think it's a great lesson how to build a company in blockchain today. If you want to be a streaming company giant in 20 years, then today you have to find your proxy business model. And by the way, Netflix is not now the biggest player in the world because it's doing streaming. They found something along the way. They find data-driven content. And Netflix know how much money they will do on particular movie or TV series before they launch it, thanks to AI, thanks to machine learning. So they pick the actors, they can modify the actors, there's an algorithm that allows you to pick actors, topics, country in which happens, low budget, high budget, anything. And they will predict with a very high accuracy. So that's what drive them to the top in 2017. Good. So, how are we doing? Well, I think we're doing fine with time. So, that's pretty much. I mean, the lesson I hope is obvious here. So, I will be finishing the topic of bubble with another video from Ben Horowitz.
How do you tell like a BS company in the crypto space versus some?
BS is bullshit. It's a shortcut.
How do you tell like a BS company in the crypto space versus something that's real?
Yeah, it's funny. Somebody at the office said the other day, they're like, well, not all ICOs are bad, but all bad companies have an ICO. And I think that's right. Really reminds me of the .com era when, and those of you who are old enough probably remember this, every old, weird, bad company like renamed themselves .com. So you have like Woolworths.com, Sears and Roebuck.com, whatever. And now they're an internet company and their price goes up and everybody goes, oh, that's idiotic. That whole thing is stupid. The internet is stupid. I'm not investing any money in that. And it turned out like the dumb thing wasn't to invest in the scam. The dumb thing was to like give up on the internet because there were some stupid people in it. And so that I think is a big lesson from that era.
So the question comes, who is the next Google, Amazon, and Netflix? What are the companies that are going to rule the world in around 20 years? So my guess is one of those companies already exists, we just don't know about it yet. And I'm going to show you some peaks, some things that are trending right now in the crypto space that are at very, very early stage, but show something amazing that they build with blockchain. And I think a huge, 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 huge takeaway from this presentation, I was doing a presentation exactly a year ago, and up until that point, it was very similar presentation. It's going to be very different presentation from now on, because those are going to be the things that change over the last year, the things that people successfully build and start getting traction. So, say hi to DeFi. DeFi is decentralized finance. So it's the first adoption curve. It's the first phase of adoption for blockchain. And the reason why finance is the first adoption is because blockchain is expensive, and we don't know yet how to scale blockchain to high performances, to high scalability. So finance has this nice property that if we pay for one transaction a couple of cents, that makes perfect sense. If you transfer something to another guy for a couple of cents, that makes sense. If you're posting a post on Facebook and you pay a couple of cents, yeah, that's kind of expensive, right? So, meet Maker. Maker, I would say it's a third killer application for Ethereum. First killer application was ICOs. Second was CryptoKitties. Who knows CryptoKitties? Okay, not so many people, but CryptoKitties was a thing that made network congested, and Ethereum became very expensive because people were buying like images of kitties on the blockchain. It's pretty crazy, but interesting economical and psychological experiment. And Maker, I think, is the third big thing that happened on Ethereum. So Maker is creating DAI. DAI is a token, it's a lightweight cryptocurrency living on the blockchain, living on Ethereum blockchain. And DAI is pegged to dollar, so it means one DAI is roughly $1. And they do it in a very interesting way. The way that, first of all, it works, and it's been very well tested because they launched early last year, and from that time, crypto was only going down up until the beginning of that year, that now it's actually started going up. Hopefully, it's going to stay that way. But they keep the value of the DAI packed, and they already went through a number of crises that they were able to solve. So that's like really, really good, tested, stable token, stable coin, stable currency. And they do it in completely decentralized manner. That means there is no owner, there is no like a company behind it, no one keeps the money in the bank. It's just, I mean, if all the developers of DAI would disappear tomorrow and the whole company would stop existing, the DAI would still work for hopefully forever. So the way they do it is they have two tokens. DAI is a stable token, and there is a Maker, which is a governance token. So what they created is decentralized central bank. So they have the whole crypto economy that I ain't gonna go into any details, but there is a governance model that can change the parameters by voting. So there is like, whoever owns the Maker have the vote, and anyone can buy Maker at any time if they would like to be a part of controlling the currency. It's fully decentralized, it lives on blockchain, and it's collateralized on blockchain, meaning that there is always enough Ether to pay back if the DAI goes down. So there is always enough Ether to pay back all the DAI in existence, and there is a huge margin as well. So whenever it goes down, collateral can get liquidated and pay back to the investors. So Maker made an amazing success, and almost 2% of all Ethereum market capitalization is now stored in Maker contracts. So 2% of all Ethereum is now stored in Maker contract as a collateral. Son of a bitch, difficult word. So as a backup for the DAI. Okay. And of course, when the most important sentence is to be said, that's when the difficult word comes in. And what is important in Maker, Maker is not alone. It's a trend that was started, but now there are a lot of stable coins. So there's a lot of, like Coinbase has its own stable coin. There's a number of stable coins, and some of them are more decentralized, some less. People reproducing Maker on different blockchains, and it's huge because for years we tried to build different businesses like bettings, like insurance companies, all that stuff we tried to build on the blockchain. But because the Bitcoin price was like that and all the other blockchain cryptocurrencies price was like that, it was really difficult to build a reasonable company. Now that we have not one but a lot of stable coins, we have centralized, decentralized stable coins, we can pick whichever we want and we can start building our businesses on top of that. So that's pretty cool. So here's an example. Uniswap is an exchange. Among other pairs, it has a DAI Ether pair, so you can get your DAI and you can exchange your DAI with Uniswap. And it's even more decentralized than all the decentralized exchanges so far. So the way it works, it's tokenized, so anyone can be a part of the exchange. Anybody can own a share in the exchange. You can just buy and share it on the blockchain. Nothing, no KYC required, nothing. And you can top up the amount of money stored on the exchange that provides liquidity. And when people exchange the money, you get a revenue share out of it. And it takes one transaction to get in, one transaction to get out. When you get in, you put money into the liquidity pool. When you get out, you get the money back. Okay? And you can do it now with DAI. So you can put your dollars, buy DAI with that, put that on the Uniswap, and it earns you money. You're doing nothing. Here's another interesting example of crypto economy built on top of Ethereum. So it's fairly complicated protocol, and I'm not gonna get into all the details. Both with Maker and Compound, there is much more under the hood. But what it allows you to do, in a similar way the Uniswap, is put your DAI into the system for the liquidity and earn interest. The interest rate depends on the value of the ecosystem and how people behave. But at this moment, you can have 7% on your DAI. So try to find a bank with similar compound effect. Good. And as a last example, I'm leaving Dharma. So Dharma is, I think it's very interesting because unlike all those other startups, they are not funded by ICOs and crypto money. They are funded by one of the top VCs in Silicon Valley. They already raised 7 million. We were working with them when they are Y Combinator alumni. So we were helping them on their initial path to the top. And they allow you to borrow and lend money, crypto, on the blockchain, including DAI. And they launched DAI just a couple months ago, and they already, after a couple days, they have more volume in DAI than in anything else, which shows how important is the stablecoin for the community and how successful Dharma is, like growing really fast, making very good moves. So what's next? So I think to sum up the previous section of the presentation, I think DeFi is getting here. It's super small in comparison to global financial market, but it's only gonna grow from now. And I expect in a couple of years that's something you're gonna hear about or read in the newspapers. There's more stuff coming. There are at least 3 interesting technologies that are around the corner. One of them is zero knowledge proofs. that's a lot of advanced cryptography, but people start building prototypes with zero-knowledge proofs. And I expect in a year or two we're gonna see first products using zero-knowledge proof. One very simple zero-knowledge product built in UK is called Aztec Protocol, and they were able to do an anonymous token. So you can send some money to some other people, and nobody knows who has how much money. And yet it has all the other blockchain properties. You cannot cheat. You cannot have spend your money twice, and so on and so forth. And only if you have your private key, you're able to see what is the balance of your account, which is a huge advancement versus the normal blockchain, which is super transparent and everybody can see how much money do you have. The usability was a huge problem, and it's getting much better. Like, there is a very popular tutorial on the network, 17 steps to buy Ethereum, and like 17 really. And there's a lot of work in that space for making on-ramping easier, for making fund storage easier, for lowering the entry curve, for preparing blockchain for the new people to come. And finally, formal verification, one of the favorites of mine, is something that allows you to prove mathematical properties of your smart contracts, which is super important because one bug in your smart contract is enough to lose all the money. So this formal verification was used for years in NASA and car industry to formally verify software that was piloting spaceships and your ABS software and so on. But now the curve is getting lower, and we should be able to formally verify our smart contracts and don't pay tens of millions of dollars for that. So there's much more coming. The scalability is still a huge challenge, and blockchain is not ready to absorb the world financial system or even a small fraction of it. So I think that's going to happen, but that's not something that's happening this year or next year. I think that's going to happen over the course of my best guess is 5 years. But there is a bunch of technologies. I'm not even getting into any details about it. Let's maybe skip that slide. So I think, okay, so when is the next bubble? Where are my millions? When it's coming? So if we believe that we can learn from the history, it seems that there is a cycle in cryptocurrencies and blockchain. And usually there is a bubble, then crash, bubble, crash, bubble, crash, bubble, crash. This is a logarithmic scale. And usually after the bubble, it kind of goes down, and there is a Bitcoin halfling, sorry. And then it means there's less new Bitcoins coming to the ecosystem, less Bitcoins being produced. And then it starts a slow path up. And then for a year or two when it's going up, everybody's like, wow, it raised so much in value in the last 2 years. Let's buy some. And then, the mania and craziness starts. And then, it's super high and people say, this is crazy, then it crashes. And that already happened 4 times. And it happened to me twice. I'm not that long, but I'm long enough to remember 2 bubbles. But there was 2 bubbles before that. And so assuming that that's going to be a trend, that's going to be probably a third halfling in about a year, and another 2-3 years before the bubble going to strike. So should we hodl? Hodl is, play on words on hold. If you watch the word long enough, you're not able to pronounce it correctly anymore. So the hodl is like you should hold your crypto because it's going to rise in value. But I believe that this next bubble is going to be a little bit different than the last one. It's going to be less speculative and more based on real-life products that are being built. So that's why there is a new community catchphrase, which is BIDL. We should be building those products. And there is a crazy amount of money in the crypto that we can now spend to build products. There is more technology than it was a couple of years ago. So now it's a good time to build, not when we are in the top of the bubble, but to build this new economy on the future. I think we still have 3 minutes. I'm not sure if I have slides. No, you can follow me on Twitter for updates on crypto. memes and philosophy. And I think we still have 2 minutes and 48 seconds for questions, if there are any questions.